If you go back, look at 2016, they had 41 drives in goal-to-goal situations, meaning, basically within those 10 yards of the end zone. 41 drives, they scored a touchdown 76% of the time in 2016. 2017, they had 32 of those drives. Touchdown percent, 72%. So a little bit of a drop-off. Now, look at 2018. They've had 24 drives in goal-to-go situations, so a lot less than they were getting. It's like they can't get, within 10 yards. 54% touchdown.
That's unbelievable.
Today's Friday, December 21st. With Patrick Conn, I'm Ari Temkin. This is the Cowboys Beat on CLNS Media. And what a disaster it was last week for the Dallas Cowboys. They lose 23-0 to the Indianapolis Colts. So what does this say about the Cowboys and their ceiling? Because seemingly, Patrick, for the last 5 weeks, we looked at this team and the winning streak they were on and thought, man, this team has some potential. So what this loss last week to the Colts do to our expectations for this team in this season?
Good thing, but it's kind of like a blip on the radar to me. You can focus on Tampa Bay and get into the playoffs.
I mean, to me, the thing about it was that was kind of the same offense we saw even during their 5-game winning streak. And, it was one of those things where it was like, and you talk about Dak Prescott being inconsistent and certainly point out, some issues with play calling, which, you've done over this 5-game winning streak. Like the difference between the Cowboys offense against Indy versus the Cowboys offense in those previous 5 weeks was Amari Cooper breaking loose, or in the games they won where he didn't, Atlanta or the others. I mean, it was just a few scores or a score by Zeke that was the difference. So, I mean, you sort of look at this offense, and that's the offense that we saw. The only difference was you have two basically 200-yard games from Amari Cooper where he catches a slant route and takes it to the house, or a short route and takes it to the house. So, I mean, that's it. Shouldn't have panicked people from a standpoint of this is kind of the offense we've seen through the majority of the year, and even though it improved dramatically under Amari Cooper, you can't count on Amari Cooper having 200 yards every week in order to win football games. That's just not sustainable.
Yeah, the problem that they had were specifically going up against a team like Indianapolis is with their defense, they like to play that two deep shell, basically, the two deep safeties. And they take away those passes that Amari Cooper normally gets and was getting. So you take that away. So basically, that's where you need a quarterback who throws with anticipation, because you gotta get it out to the sidelines a lot. Or you have to attack the middle of the field, and we know that Dak Prescott does not like to do that. That is where you beat a team like that. And I hope that they did some thorough film studying over Indy, because guess what? You know what Tampa likes to run? That two-deep safety look as well. So it's going to be a lot of the same thing. So here, in that game coming up, they better figure out a way to get Jarwin and Schultz and get Beasley involved. I mean, you're talking about a guy who went from 6.1 targets per game before they got Amari, and now it's like 4.7. There's a couple games in there where he got 7, so that skews the number a little bit. But for the most part, they're not even looking at Beasley, and that's where he's going to have to win for him. He's going to have to get across the middle of the field. You can score on this defense that they're going to be playing, but they've got to figure out a way. And that was my big takeaway from that game, is they couldn't get the ball to their guys.
Why do you think that was? Just because of the two deep shell, or do you think? I know you've been pointing out just the issues with Linehan.
I think it's a Linehan thing as a whole. I mean, he knows, there's things that he likes to do, and he likes to stick with it, and he's stubborn enough that he's going to do it regardless of the outcome. That's what it feels like.
I mean, it's you look at teams, like the Chicago Bears, right? Like, the Bears have Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard. I'd take Zeke over those two guys. They're both talented and they both can do dynamic things. I'd still take Zeke over those. You look at their receiving core. I mean, Trey Burton, he's pretty good and talented at the tight end position. Allen Robinson. I mean, you've got a rookie in Anthony Miller. I mean, I'd take Amari over any of those guys. I mean, you look at Trubisky and Dak. Maybe Trubisky will be better in the future, but I'd take Dak right now. But yet the Bears are an offense that has Matt Nagy as their offensive play caller. He's dynamic. He's innovative. He's mixing matching his personnel. I mean, it just shows you what it takes to have a dynamic offense in 2018 in the NFL. And then you watch the Cowboys and you're like, this just looks like an old offense that's, using old style personnel packages. We can go back and dissect, the 3rd and 1 play, the Jameis Olawale throw, or the 4th and 1 call where you go 13 personnel. I mean, it's you've been saying it for a while now. I sort of gave Linehan a pass during this 5-game winning streak, but it to be this bad, and Patrick, I know you have the stats, but to be this bad scoring the football in the red zone for a team that needs to score in the red zone because they're not a big play type offense. Like that is to have Zeke Elliott and Amari Cooper, and the offensive line's not great, but it's good enough. And to be that bad in the red zone and in goal to go situations, I mean it's atrocious.
Well, what's even worse is this is a regression that's been going on for years now.
Yeah,
it's not some new thing. If you go back, look at 2016, they had 41 drives in goal to goal situations, meaning, basically within those 10 yards of the end zone. 41 drives, they scored a touchdown 76% of the time in 2016. 2% of the time it was a turnover, 2% time they failed to score a drive.
Wow.
2017, they had 32 of those drives. Touchdown percent, 72%. It's a little bit of a drop off.
Yeah.
3% turnover percentage, 9% of the time they failed to score. So
do you know what the league average is with goal to go situation?
I honestly don't have that in front of me, because I was mainly just looking at
Cowboys.
The Cowboys information. Yeah, I could probably pull it up here in a minute and kind of see what the average is. And then here's the kicker. So you saw that 72%, it would drop from 76 from 16 to 17. 1% increase in turnovers, and failed to score was a 7% increase. Now look at 2018. They've had 24 drives in goal to go situations. So a lot less than they were getting. It's like they can't get, within 10 yards. 54% touchdown.
That's unbelievable.
8% of the time they turn the ball over. And here's the one that I wanted to throw my phone when I started putting the numbers together. Failed to score 13% of the time.
That's unbelievable. With the best running back in football, and as we've seen in the last 5 weeks, a top 5 receiver in football.
I'm going to ask you this question. What percentage of Ezekiel Elliott's touches do you think he should have in the red zone? Like, if you had a percent of his total carries, what number would you think he should have?
Percentage of his total carries?
Yeah, how many percentage would you say that he should have in the red zone?
Well, I mean, I would just say he should have, of the total, red zone plays they run, and if we even just go goal to go, 80%?
Yeah, well, Ezekiel Elliott's got 13% of carries.
Of the Cowboys?
Of his carries, 13% are in the red zone. Mm-hmm. He's averaging less than 3 touches a game in the red zone.
Wow. Wait, what was the number you read for offense goal-to-go efficiency for this year?
For touchdown percent?
Yeah.
54.
Well, that's higher than what ESPN has for its NFL matchup graphic that it released today. They have 47.6% in offense goal-to-go efficiency.
Well, I pulled my number straight from Pro Football Reference.
Interesting. I mean, either way,
it's still bad.
It's horrible. And I don't know what league average is, but this year in the NFL, the number 1 team in offense efficiency goal-to-go situations is the Panthers at 88.5, the Broncos 86.4, Steelers are 82.8, Saints are 82.4, Chiefs are 81%, right? So,
yeah, I was wondering where they got their numbers from, because when I pulled the numbers, the Chiefs are number 1 at 89%.
Interesting.
So I don't know. I pulled mine, like I said, straight from Pro Football Reference, which is a great tool.
No, totally. And that I was just thinking of in terms of like, okay, so they were at 70, what percent 2 years ago in 2016? You said 76%?
76%.
Yeah,
so they've dropped 22% in touchdown percentage.
And even in 2016, when you look at the numbers, in 2018, 76% is probably middle of the pack. It's probably league average.
Yeah.
And that was, that Dak and Zeke were pretty dynamic with that zone read option in 2016. But
absolutely.
Even without that, Zeke he's a rookie and he's one of the best running backs in football, if not the best running back in football. So it's clearly play calling. The thing is, the Jameis Olawale play call is a good play call, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll agree. At first I was like, here we go. They're trying to get cute. But then you think about it and you're like, that's a good play call. It was open.
But
all you got to do is catch the football.
Right. But with that being said, there was a play call in the Washington game. I know I've referenced this before, but they did the same kind of thing, right. And they ran Noah Brown across the formation and he was wide open and Dak misses him. And that's because people say, well, he was blitzed. Well, they had the jumbo package. They sold out. Washington sold out to stop the run. Of course he's blitzed. They have everybody in the line of scrimmage. So in that situation,
they do that on purpose. That's the call. That's the design.
So in that situation, Dak has to know, hey, I'm going to get the heat. I need to throw it, get the ball, put the ball there. Step into my throw, put the ball there. He misses. There was another similar situation. They throw the ball to Cole Beasley and they miss there. And it's like, it's not that these are bad play calls. It's just that now you're counting on Jameis Olawale and Noah Brown and to me, it's all of a sudden now you start to look and you're like, well, this team can't score in the red zone, and now they're counting on guys in sort of this trickeration. Just like at this point, if you're Scott Linehan, if you're this bad in the red zone and this bad at goal to go situations, just give the ball to Zeke. Like there's just no other way to do it anymore. Because even though these are good play calls, you're counting on guys to execute that are clearly not able to execute. And so you just have to give it to your best player and try to see if he can execute for you. Even on the fourth down call, they ran that jumbo package and everybody blocks down to the left except for Connor Williams. Connor didn't block Marcus Hunt. So Marcus Hunt blows it up. He gets penetration through the middle. And so even there, it's kind of like, man, I hate to harp on Linehan because it's another issue of execution. You have a rookie guard who's clearly overmatched, who's, I don't know, maybe he was the only guy that wasn't supposed to block down, but everybody else blocks to the left except for him. Lyle Collins didn't know who to block because Connor Williams was engaged to block with a guy that he was supposed to block. Right. So, but at the same time, I don't know. I you see teams, they go 11 personnel and you instead of going 13 personnel jumbo packages, you create more running lanes at 11 personnel or 10 personnel, right? Like you spread them out and get running lanes that way. And, again, going back to the best offenses in the NFL with Sean McVay and Sean Payton and Andy Reid and Matt Nagy, these are dynamic offenses that are innovative, that are creative, that mix and match personnel groupings and I get what he's trying to do, Linehan, but at the same time, it's like the number is what the number is. The number is what the number is. It's atrocious.
And I have some more atrocious numbers for you.
Let's go. Let it rip.
Okay. All right. So this is also goal to go situations in games 1 through 7. So this is prior to Amari. They had 9 goal to go situations in 7 games.
Wow. And by the way, their offense is designed for long, sustained drive. Their offense is designed to go and goal to go situations. They're not a big play offense.
Right. And so, here you go. Of those 9, they scored a touchdown on 78% of the time. Weeks 8 through 14, they had 15 goal to go situations. They scored a touchdown 40% of the time.
Wow.
There's your problem right there. As good as what Amari has brought to this team, it has actually, it's almost like they've regressed with his addition in the red zone. 13% turnover rate. In the last 3 games, they've had 5 opportunities and they've walked away with 0 touchdowns.
What's the issue?
Honestly, I don't know, because when you look at it, you think, well, there's the design. Right now they're dealing with so many injuries on that offensive line. And it makes me question, like, when you go back and talk about Connor Williams not down blocking, Marcus Hunt blows up play. Connor Williams is so used to playing on the left side because that's what he did all of training camp.
Right. And that's what he did at college. He was left tackle at Texas.
Right, so it's almost like when you get to the right side, they have to change everything when you play from that side. It's hand placement. Basically everything that you've learned for the left side of the offensive line, you have to flip it. And that is why Lyle Collins struggled early on because he had to flip everything because he was so used to playing left guard. Now he's right tackle. And if people were like, oh, just take him a right tackle and put him back. No, you got to mess with footwork, hand placement, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that might have caused some issues. But there's some problems there because they don't have their guys because they're injured and that's not an excuse by any means. I'm not making excuses for them. I said, but there's something to that. But I think the biggest issue right now, especially with this team, is you have a guy in Ezekiel Elliott. And if you go check, yesterday I wrote about him on WFAA, talk about some of the accolades he's chasing. The fact that he's leading the league in rushing and has 11 less touchdowns than the guy in second is a problem. And I think they need to get back to giving Ezekiel Elliott red zone touches. They don't need to, give him this mass number of touches because he's really putting in a lot of mileage on himself right now. But in that red zone area, they really need to get back to getting Zeke involved because that's how this team is built. That's how this offense is built. So they need to get back to it.
And I that's obviously a part of it, but I also just think like it's play design, it's personnel groupings and packages. Like it's just these basic old school fundamental things Linehan seems glued to. The jumbo, the 13 personnel, running between, why are you running to the interior offensive line when you have Connor Williams and Xavier Suafilo and Joe Looney in the lineup, right? Like, that's not your strength. Try to run to the perimeter, try to run to your strengths. It just, even if they force feed Zeke, I'm not even convinced they're able to score because of personnel groupings and all those other components of it. But fundamentally you're right? Like, this kind of goes back to the whole, don't count on Jameis Olawale to execute, even though it's good play design. Just at this point, you're so bad in the red zone, just feed Zeke. But at the same time, it's I don't have confidence that they're going to use the right personnel groupings or packages that, get this thing rolling.
This offense this year is almost to a T, almost matching the 2015 season. If you remember that horrid 4-12 year.
Yeah.
If you look at their red zone efficiency is almost identical. 44.4% in 2015. This year was 44.2.
Wow.
They were ranked 30th in the NFL that year. This year they're 31st.
Wow.
Their points per game is a little higher this time by 2 points. But that just shows you how inept they are and how much they rely on that defense.
Well, that and
help
Cooper.
them win football games.
And Cooper. 217 yards receiving against Philadelphia. No red zone needed there when you have 2 long touchdowns. 180 yards against Washington. 2 touchdowns, same kind of deal. And then in the other games they won throughout their winning streak, that's just, as you said, it's great play by their defense and then a couple of plays here or there by Zeke in the Atlanta game, the New Orleans game. Those games are basically won because your defense was dominant and Zeke Elliott had a couple of great plays that got you in the end zone. I've talked about this a little bit. What year was it that Jason Garrett gave up play calling duties?
Want to say
it was 2013.
It was 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
It might have been 2013 because that was the year of Callahan. And then the very next year they brought in Linehan as the passing game coordinator, but he called the plays.
Well, who called the plays in 2014, Patrick?
Linehan did.
Well, but Tony Romo.
Oh, Tony Romo. Okay. So what he did was, this what you're calling? No, I'm gonna change it.
No, that's
kill.
That's a stupid play call.
What's funny about it? It's not really funny, but if you look at it, 2014 they had their best numbers, as far as red zone efficiency, points per game. think they're at like 29.2 points per game that year. That's the highest they've been under Linehan. And I was like, well, it's because of Tony Romo.
Yeah.
So it's almost like Linehan has stayed as long as he has because they're like, oh, but look what he did in 2014. Well, think about it. It wasn't really him.
Right.
And now it's kind of like you see in the Scott Linehan. I don't think the guy can survive this year. Like,
no way.
There's no way because there's been too many clunkers, and they've got to find an offensive coordinator. I think Jason Garrett's coming back. I think that unless something just happens the next 2 weeks where they don't win a game and Philly wins out and gets the division, I don't see any way that Jason Garrett's not back.
Yeah, I agree.
But now
and
they got
he's definitely gone if they don't make the playoffs. I mean, there's no way he comes back if they miss the playoffs, given the circumstance.
Not winning 5 games in a row to get you to 8-5, and then you blow the last 3 games to drop down to 8-8. The Jason Garrett special right there. And so, unless that happens, no, Jason Garrett will be back next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I mean, the reason I brought up the play calling thing is like, and obviously this is ancient history, but like part of why, if you're the Cowboys, you wanted Jason Garrett as the head coach was because of the offense, right? Like the Ravens wanted to hire Jason Garrett. He was viewed as this. I mean, he was viewed then sort of in a way that we view Sean McVay or Lincoln Riley. I mean, maybe it's funny to think about that, but that's. I mean, he had a dynamic offense, and it wasn't just the offense that he designed, but it was the play calling, and certainly Romo's. You could look at Romo and say that's part of it, but what they had a top 10 offense. I think basically every year Garrett was the offensive play caller except for 1 or 2. So the reason they hired him, the reason they wanted him to be hired, was because of his offense. And you look at the different boxes that he checks off as a coach, and I think we could both agree he's a good motivator. But like he doesn't check off many other boxes. So it just like now you go back and you look and you're like, why is he your head coach? Like what skills does he possess that should make him your head coach other than he's a good motivator?
I think that he's got the psychology part down. And that's
which is motivation.
Well, yeah, to a point, but I wouldn't list it under motivation because when you think about, the psychology with, you remember what happened with the Jerry Brown Jr. and, and the things that happened in the locker room, and he's got to keep this team together. And even amidst all the bad that was going on this year, these guys fought for him, and there's a psychology to it. So yeah, that's one reason why. But honestly, in a time like this, if I have an offensive minded coach like Jason Garrett is, and I see that my offense is struggling, I'm taking the play sheet away from Scott Linehan going, You know what? I'm trying to save the season here. Because if we lose out, we're both gone.
Well, I mean, you're right. I just wonder, the things that I heard about, like they kind of went all in with Linehan, which like I don't get that at all. Like, why would you say, hey, like what has Scott Linehan done to the NFL where you're like, hey, we should give him all of the power to basically design the offense the way he sees fit and the personnel that he wants, like that. But that's what they did. They got rid of Dez because of Linehan. The whole receiver by committee, don't need a number one. That's a Linehan thing. I mean, it's like they gave him the keys to the car. I don't know why, but they did. And so maybe Garrett didn't because this isn't his offense. And this isn't, he's not comfortable with it. And
right.
Maybe that's the answer for the Cowboys at offensive coordinator after this season. And I know it doesn't help this season, but I think I just feel like they went so far down the Scott Linehan rabbit hole that Garrett maybe wasn't in position to save them, and quite frankly, maybe he didn't even want to because it was so dead and gone.
Yeah, but to not to segue away from that, but now we're getting into this game against Tampa. And how important is it that they win this football game?
All right, let's hold that thought here. We'll get into that in a moment. Patrick Conn, Ari Temkin, CLNS Media, the Cowboys beat, and guys are absolutely terrible at taking care of their health, whether it's a knee injury, a bad back, or something worse. Guys are usually more comfortable rubbing some dirt on it than seeing a doctor. I'm guilty of it myself. I have a 3-year-old and a newborn, and I'm picking them up, and my back hurts, and I figure like it'll only get better someday when I wake up, and it doesn't get better, and yet here I am talking about how I should probably go see a doctor, and I'm not doing it. But the same is true for erectile dysfunction. Studies show 70% of guys who experience ED don't get treated for it. Thankfully, Roman created an easy way to get checked out by a doctor and get treated for ED online. It's perfect. Roman is a one-stop shop where licensed U.S. physicians can diagnose ED and ship medication right to your door. With Roman, there are no waiting rooms, awkward face-to-face conversations, or uncomfortable trips to the pharmacy. You can handle everything discreetly online. All you have to do is visit GetRoman.com/CB, fill out a brief medical onboarding, chat with a doctor, and get FDA-approved ED meds delivered to your door in discreet, unmarked packaging. Guys, go online and get checked by the doctor. Erectile dysfunction is a problem that guys don't tackle, but with Roman, it's really easy, so take care of it. Again, for a free online visit, go to GetRoman.com/CB for Cowboys Beat. GetRoman, ROMAN.com/CB. That's GetRoman.com/CB for a free online visit. GetRoman.com/CB. All right, with Patrick Conn, I'm Ari Temkin. This is the Cowboys Beat on CLNS Media. And yeah, a must-win against a pretty bad Tampa Bay team, but there are certainly areas where Tampa could have the advantage. They've got a good defensive line, and they can get after the quarterback. That we know. They're a really bad red zone defense, and they turn the football over a ton. So
yeah, talk about a ton. How about out of all their drives that they've had this year, they turn the ball over 20.5% of the time. So once every 5 drives, wow, you are guaranteed a turnover.
And I think like Jeff Heath has like 8 career interceptions, and 3 of those have come against Jameis Winston.
Sounds about right. I know he had the great one against Aaron Rodgers. That was a great interception. But yeah, he likes to play against his team, and they love to turn the ball over. They're very good, and I know you point out their defense. Offensively, they're really good at throwing the ball. They got the 3rd highest yards per attempt average at 8.6, tied for the 3rd most passing touchdowns and the most passing yards overall. Talk about they're weaker in the run game, 2nd worst in yards per attempt at 4 yards. And
who are their running backs?
Peyton Barber, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And they also fumble the ball a lot when they're running the ball. And you know what Dallas is pretty good at? Forcing fumbles.
Yeah.
I think they got 6th most or something like that in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. I mean, I know this team looked really bad last week. I just don't see any way that Tampa wins this game. I just don't. I don't.
You hope not. You definitely hope not. No, this has all the writing of a team like the Cowboys after being embarrassed on the road, getting blanked, losing 23-0. I kind of feel like you're going to get an angry football team.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you this earlier when we were talking about the game, but I kind of slipped my mind. Did it feel like to you that Ezekiel Elliott was the only one that you really felt was trying in that game?
Yeah.
I was watching the game going, can I get some effort?
Does anybody else care? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and it's interesting because Ezekiel Elliott's mom on Twitter, she said that she was thinking about it, and she goes, I think that's the first time my son's ever played in a game where his team didn't score since he was like 7.
Wow.
So it's like that's new to him. So he probably will be angry, and he's going to take it out on a rush defense that just gave up 227 yards on the ground the week prior against Baltimore. And so that team had a running quarterback. So what should Dak do? He should run a little bit this week. I think he can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder how much these next 2 weeks will change our opinion of this team, and how much we'll look back on this Colts game and either think, man, that was a pretty good indicator of what this team is going to be like when they play playoff teams, or if that was just a blip. But I mean, they're going to finish 10-6. They're going to beat the Buccaneers. They're going to beat the Giants. They're going to head to the playoffs and play Seattle in the first round. And, you know, Seattle's a very similar team to the Colts. I mean, they don't have a T.Y. Hilton, but I mean, Chris Carson's having sort of a Marlon Mack type year. Their defense can get after you. We know how good their defense can be, as we saw earlier on this season. So that, you know, I look at this Colts game and think, you know, is this a true indication of this team's ceiling? Or, as you said, were they just kind of going through the motions, and, you know, was this just one of those days where the Colts had to win and the Cowboys felt like, hey, we're okay, we're fine?
Yeah, they kind of felt like I said, it didn't feel like anybody was giving effort. But that was one of the worst games I've ever seen the defense play.
Yeah.
Absolutely worst.
Especially their linebackers.
Well, they were missing tackles, but normally when they miss tackles, and even Rod Marinelli commented on this, normally when they miss tackles, they have somebody else there, and they weren't pursuing to the ball like they normally do. So I don't know what it was about that game. I don't know if they thought, hey, we won 5 in a row, let's go up here and take this team. I don't know if maybe they mentally just weren't ready for that game. That was the first noon kickoff they played in a while, so it makes you kind of wonder, about that mentality of being ready earlier in the day. If they played that game later during the day, where Dallas Cowboys are used to playing 3 o'clock and, evening games. I honestly can't say one way or the other. I hope it's not that. But I hope that's just from the effort that I watched, it looks like a blip.
Only time will tell. All right, that's Patrick Conn. I'm Ari Temkin. Make sure you're following Patrick at Draft Cowboys. Check out all his great work for WFAA, great articles he reads, and, of course, his great content both here and for WFAA. I am Ari Temkin on Twitter at Ari Sports. Catch me on the Dallas Cowboys pre- and post-game show on the Cowboys Radio Network, 105 through the Fan. And, of course, I stream live every day, talking Cowboys, noon Central, facebook.com/Watch Phantom, Phantom. Of course, make sure to tell your friends, spread the gospel of the Cowboys beat, and make sure to give us a rating wherever you listen to this podcast, because ratings help other people find us. All right, for now, we're out. Peace.